Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are grateful to our witnesses for appearing before the subcommittee today to testify on the important and timely issue before us. We need look no further than the catastrophic events that shook Japan less than 3 weeks ago to ask whether the United States is prepared for such an attack here. The earthquake that shook Japan, measuring 9.0 on the Richter scale, sent a tsunami racing towards the Japanese coast, wiping towns and villages literally off the globe. With an earthquake or tsunami of this scale, would while an earthquake or tsunami of this scale would represent a catastrophic disaster, the cascading events, including the crippling of nuclear power plants and continuing radiation release, compel us to rethink the scope of disaster that could occur in our own homeland. The tragedy in Japan presents us with a unique teaching moment to help us learn to better prepare for and respond to catastrophic disaster. While we will study these lessons for future disasters, our thoughts and prayers must first be with the Japanese people as they struggle to overcome these triple calamities. Today we ask the necessary question: how can we improve the nation's response to catastrophic disaster? Ever since Hurricane Katrina exposed the federal government's unacceptable inability to respond to a disaster of unexpected magnitude, this subcommittee has performed vigorous oversight on steps the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, should take to improve its planning and preparation for a catastrophic disaster, as well as for efforts to mitigate potential damage. During the 110th and 111th Congresses, our subcommittee held hearing after hearing to ensure that FEMA would not repeat the failures seen on the Gulf Coast. I appreciate that Chairman Denham has chosen to continue this oversight, and I look forward to working with him on these critical issues. The Robert T. Stafford Disaster Relief and Emergency Assistance Act was signed into law in 1988. The act, authorized by our committee, serves as the federal government's primary authority for addressing major disasters. Importantly, the Stafford Act recognizes that states and local communities, and not the federal government, have primary responsibility to address disasters and emergencies. The federal government acts to supplement the efforts and resources of states and of local and tribal governments, as well as disaster relief organizations. Yet it remains unclear whether the Stafford Act contemplates catastrophic disasters, even like Hurricane Katrina, or certainly like the threefold earthquake, tsunami, and nuclear meltdown currently unfolding in Japan. For the most part, the authority provided by the Stafford Act has provided was sufficient to address all types of disasters and emergencies, natural and terrorist. But some have questioned whether the Stafford Act is sufficient for catastrophic disasters. In 2006, this committee sought to address these potential gaps by enacting the Post-Katrina Emergency Management Reform Act, enacted as Title VI of the Department of Homeland Security Appropriation Act. The Post-Katrina Act defined a catastrophic incident as one that, quote, results in extraordinary levels of casualties or disruption, severely affecting the population, including mass evacuations, infrastructure, environment, economy, national morale, or government functions in an area, end quote. This definition provides the framework for how the federal government should plan for a catastrophic incident. However, there remain questions about whether this is an appropriate trigger for a catastrophic disaster. In fact, I chaired a subcommittee hearing in July 2009 that addressed this issue. I look forward to continuing to listen to this ongoing debate within the emergency management community, while we may not have settled on the best definition of catastrophic, we do know that one characteristic that distinguishes catastrophic disasters from other disasters is that the magnitude of a catastrophic event often has national impact, and that such disasters are complex, unusually large in their effects, hard to predict, and very expensive. We also know another catastrophic event will someday strike the United States, and we must be ready for that day. In September 2010, the Department of Homeland Security's Inspector General released a report that addressed the issue of FEMA's preparedness for the next catastrophic disaster. The report provided a detailed analysis of the nation's level of preparedness in 10 key areas. The report in part shared good news. FEMA had made progress in all 10 areas, and in particular had made substantial progress towards improving emergency communications. However, the report also cited concerns about the lack of effective coordination between FEMA and state, local, and tribal governments, the need for updated information technology systems to upgrade and integrate agency-wide resources, the lack of experienced staff to handle the demanding workload at FEMA as states and localities are pressed in the aftermath of the Great Recession and left without stimulus or other funds from the federal government, and insufficient funding to carry out the agency's mission. While many look to FEMA to take the lead during disasters, we must remember that the heart and soul of FEMA's mission is to equip, train, and work with their state, local, and tribal partners, along with relief organizations that serve as the country's first responders in most disasters and emergencies. I very much look forward to hearing today from Administrator Fugate and others on steps FEMA has taken to address these shortcomings.
Thank you, Ms. Norton.